1. So I've only been working front desk for a couple of months now. But this happened pretty early on. If I remember correctly, it was around the 1 week out of training mark for me. I was checking people in and the line was fairly long when a wonderful little rotund woman, with her visibly exasperated mother, finally reached the front of the line. "Good evening, do you guys have a reservation?"
"Yes, under Waffle Level." We have two rooms."
I looked through our registry and I found only one room under the given name. "I found the first one, but I'm not seeing a second under your name. Keep in mind I'm still relatively new to this, and any multiple reserves I've seen have all been under the same name in our system."
"What do you mean? We reserved 2 rooms?" Looks to her mom. "You did reserve 2 damn rooms, right?" "Yes, of course." "It has to be there, you're just not looking for it, right?"
I checked back through the entire list and there is nothing that could be remotely viewed as similar or close to her name, and nothing that would say hold or completely vague. "Ma'am, I'm not seeing it in our system. I unfortunately am booked solid on that type of room, but I do still have a few available. It might be a little more expensive, but I can get you a second room right now." This was the wrong thing to say. She starts getting flustered, to which the mom is already becoming visibly embarrassed. The line behind her grows impatient.
"Obviously, this is a mistake on, your part, and, I don't feel I should have to, pay for the second room at all since, it was you guys' fault."
"I'm still relatively new at this, ma'am. If you like, I can contact my manager and see what he says."
"Yes, I want you to contact your manager, and I want you to tell him you'll be giving us the upgraded room for free because of your mistake."
So I go into the back and quickly call my manager, who is a good friend of mine, and tell him the situation. "Fuck that, that's on booking.com. Tell her she'll have to take it up with her." "Do you want to tell her?" "I'm not talking to her over the phone about it. Just tell her exactly that, and you've already offered to do everything you can to help her. She can take it or leave it." Okay, here goes. I gather up every bit of courage I can muster and head back to the front. My manager said that the problem lies with booking.com and you'll have to contact them to get a resolution, beyond what I have already offered.
"Are you fucking kidding me? What kind of bullshit service is this?"
The mom is very visibly embarrassed, and the lady directly behind rotund woman in line is looking at me with so much pity.
"Let's let him get these other people checked in and we'll just call booking.com and see if we can get it straightened out. I don't see why I should have to straighten, anything out. It's their dumbass fault."
Reluctantly, she goes to the side and I begin checking people in that have been waiting the whole time. And the next lady, who felt so bad for me, whispers that she understood how I felt and apologized. That lady got a huge discount on my end, and help later on when she needed her parents' room switched closer to hers. I get through the line and she is still scowling on the phone at me while talking to an automated system for the most part.
"Honey, why don't we just get the other room and then we can get a refund from the website later? I just want to sleep." I don't fucking understand why we should have to pay for it.
Blah blah continues on but waddles her way up and pays for the second room. Think it's over? Not quite. Not even 20 minutes later I get a call to front desk from a cell phone. Most people don't realize we have caller ID on the front desk phone. I pick up and give her the "Thank you for calling blah blah, this is Smoke 731 MCB, how can I help you?" Then I hear in a familiar voice,
"Yes, this is booking.com customer service, we have a complaint here. A woman came into your hotel and you all claimed one of her reservations wasn't in your system."
"You have got to be kidding me."
It shows here that it's in your system, and you probably should comp their room for making them go through so much unnecessary trouble."
"Ma'am, there is only one reservation in here for that guest, and as I've been led to understand, that makes it a you issue."
Actually, thank you, have a good night."
I hung up. The next morning my manager was in and she complained to him. I wasn't there, but I had heard he shut her down again. That's the story of how I got broken in on front desk. 2. So I work in a big chain hotel in a large city near a train station. There are countless hotels and some have a very similar name like Hotel blah blah train station, North Hotel blah blah train station, Tower Hotel blah blah train station, Square, and so on. It often happens that guests reach the wrong hotel, and we know it so well between each hotel staff that we have up in our sleeve a detailed close map of the surroundings, with all the similar named hotels to help the lost guest. Today I met a true ace. Got a call at 7 p.m. Okay, I have a reservation in blah blah Tower Hotel under name Smith, but right now I can't find the damn hotel. Your explanations were shit. I walked 2 hours and still can't find you. Trying to remember, but I didn't recall having any guests who went in my hotel by mistake during the past 2 hours. Okay, sir, I understand. You are right now calling Blah Blah Square Hotel, and I will try and lead you to Tower Hotel. Same brand. Where exactly are you? I don't know. I see some towers forward and next to me a sushi shop. Sweating and opening Google Map, the place is full of towers and there are several coffee shops. Okay, by any chance did you pass the train station and went north or south? How would I know? It's the first time in this shitty city. I'm in front of a brown tower. Finding where he could be, there is only one brown tower. Staying calm, but die inside. Great, sir, I found you. So please go there and there. And I explained to him my best, staying with him on the phone. Fortunately, my hotel was not so busy at this time, but even so, I had to let some checking-in guests waiting at the front desk know that my coworker was available. Eventually, I heard the magic word, "Okay, can see the hotel." Needless to say, I didn't even have a thank you. So I kicked off the phone at 7:20 p.m. and went back to my check-in and front desk routine. It was not until 8 p.m. that I knew this case was far from ended. Passing through the revolving doors, who is it but a man, red-faced, stressed eyes, phone up, rushing to me like a bull and throwing his bag on the floor in front of my desk. I will never recommend your hotel, ever. Activating mental self-defense, psychopathic mode. Critical level. Good evening, sir. Welcome. What is the problem? I went to every fucking hotel of your brand in the city. I have a reservation and I have had a horrible day. But this evening marathon is the final nail in my coffin. If I am not in this one, I'll cancel it right away and sleep here. I won't walk anymore. I don't care if you're fully booked. I know people. Waiting for him to finish while thinking about all the choices in my life that made me being in front of this right now. I'm sorry that you didn't have a nice day, sir. We'll try to end it positive. May I have your name? Smith. Yes, God, I knew it. He was not in Tower Hotel at all, but in mine, Square Hotel. He messed up. Stay calm. At this moment, while confirming with Smith he was indeed eventually in the good hotel, I thought that maybe it was my fault. Maybe I overestimated the autonomy of grown adults with internet connection in a large city. And that even if Smith told me he was in Tower Hotel, I should have checked my arrival list. I'll be keeping that in mind for next time. Giving him his key, and then I heard, "Either change the name of your hotels or change your job. Paying this amazing price for a doll-sized room because you're near the train station just to end up walking 3 hours before you even reach the lobby is a total scam. I demand a discount and a fair price. It is late." I understand the situation, but the fact that you can get lost is not the responsibility of the hotel. Furthermore, we tried to help you the best we can, and you chose a prepaid rate long ago, which is already way below the normal rate today, as you can see on our panel. Are you mocking me? I want to see the manager. And so on. My boss didn't accept a refund either. I hope Smith will get some good rest, and next time, I will rework my GPS helping program. 3. Friday night was probably the most emotionally exhausting day I've had at this job. I work as a sales admin and FDA at a locally owned inn, as on an island, and it's a sorta nice place and I enjoy working there. But sometimes everything just seems to go wrong. So I walk in to start my shift. As I'm driving in, and I see the blue lights and think, shit. So this is how today is going to be? Once I get in, I learn that a woman is possibly ODing in her car in our parking lot. She is a woman we all know because she collects rocks from the landscaping around the hotel and brings them to us like gifts. She hangs out in the hotel a lot, and doesn't really cause problems. It had occurred to me she was a possible drug user before, but it's still sort of shocking to hear it confirmed. The cops and managers were outside talking and figuring it out. Meanwhile, check-ins are coming in like crazy, and I jump in and help my coworker get rid of the lobby full of people. Pretty soon, more things just started happening, one after another. One room smells heavily of smoke and guest needs to be moved. In another room, the TV had been pulled out as if someone was trying to move it or steal it. Moved them too. More weird little things like that. A banquet was starting outside, and I had to start counting banks and catering to their needs, like having people move their cars and making change, etc. It was just generally very busy on top of the incident outside. We didn't have very many arrivals when I came in, and we weren't sold out, but we got so many walk-ins that night that by the time I left we only had 10 rooms left until we were sold out. A little later on, the wedding party comes in for the wedding Saturday, and I can tell everyone's already hammered. They had early access to the suites and banquet rooms set up. I got them all checked in after a lot of repetitiveness, and they start loading everything in, being loud, yelling, and just generally being annoying. The groom put everything on his card and kept stammering about how much they were spending. He was being so rude that the bride was literally mouthing to me, "He's drunk," and "I'm sorry," behind him to explain his behavior. They asked to use the door on the far west end of the hotel, which tells me that they're about to carry things up 4 flights of stairs and wake up a bunch of people with their banging and shuffling and shouting. By this time it was around 9 p.m. I start to explain, but he complains more about how much they're spending. So I complied, but told them to be quiet. Less than 10 minutes later, a banquet staff member comes in from outside and tells me that somebody has urinated off of the balcony onto the big suite that the wedding has. It landed on top of a refrigerated shed that was used for food storage, and could easily have landed on employees or guests outside at that banquet. I asked him to describe the guy, and oh, guess what? It's the groom. I was pissed. I called the suite, but there was no answer, and I couldn't get away from the desk. One of the banquet employees saw that it happened, went upstairs and tells the bride who was walking around setting up, and it upset her so much, understandably, that she started yelling in the groom's face, telling him that he's going to get them kicked out. Thank God, hopefully he feels bad. That must have been so embarrassing. The night before your wedding and your fiancé is being stupid, causing stupid problems. She later came down and talked to me and said they're good people, but they like to party, and that tomorrow was going to be a shit show. Great. The woman in her car was responsive when the paramedics came, but I don't know anything that happened afterwards. The wedding day was a shit show. We also had to call the cops again that Saturday because of a noise complaint from a room that ended in an arrest and eviction. I feel so exhausted after all that, and today I'm just going to chill the heck out. I'm learning a lot about being aware of risks and not trusting everyone like I would like to. I'm getting much better at de-escalation, and I'm getting much more confident at customer service. 4. I have never issued a command to a guest, except this guy. It's something like 8:30 or 9:30 at night, not even that late, in the middle of the week early one summer. I'm working my evening shift alone and quietly at our property, which is directly across the street from a fancy inn and right around the corner from a modest inn. In wanders a middle-aged guy who, at first estimation, I decided was seriously drunk. Wandered is exactly the right word for how he transmitted himself from the door to the desk, because every other step he had to rescan the whole room and figure out where my desk was. Where the only desk was. Like a poorly programmed robot. His radar didn't even make contact every time either, so he ended up visiting several pieces of furniture on the way to my station, and during his trek he probably discovered more desks than he would have in an IKEA showroom. Finally, standing before me, literally swaying, he says, or rather he sort of loosely admits, the purpose of his harrowing journey. "I'll need my room keys." Not very polite, but he's trashed, and that's just how it goes sometimes. but I'm confused as to why a guest just needs keys all of a sudden coming in off the street. Okay, I'll be happy to help you. Do you already have a reservation here? After a long pause,
Yeah, I believe I do.
I get his name, which takes some effort, and look him up. No dice. The computer hasn't got him at all. I then ask if he has already checked in, just to throw more information on the fire, and I get exactly the same response. At this point, I'm certain some critical information is getting lost in the drunken haze that is this man, so I ask him for his license, which I would need anyway, so I can just get his name off of there. Still no cigar, so I take that hard left down that dark road that every desk agent hates, because it always ends with unpleasant phone calls and awkward refusals to write keys. Is it possible it's under a different name? Did you check in with anyone else, or is it just you? You know how it is. When you suddenly discover you're also being paid to be a private eye in little 3-minute increments. Ultimately, I decide that this guy does not exist in our system. Does not have a reservation, never had a reservation. So I guess at this point he's so trashed that he thinks he made a reservation he intended to make, but never came up out of his booze plunge for air long enough to actually do so. Mr. Boostafarian, I don't have you in my system at all. Would you like to set up a reservation for tonight so we can get you into a room? He says, okay, cool. I go through the motions, and he forks over his card, which is good for the room rate. I made sure to pronounce the price clearly at least 3 times before executing authorization, just to make sure that very large number actually makes it through his skull. I'm still pretty sure it didn't. I write him his keys and tell him how to get to his room, and even offer to walk him to the elevator on the other end of the building. He makes some pass about how he can do it himself and begins his epic quest to locate the other end of the lobby, which, judging from his navigational capabilities, is spinning about as fast as a neutron star. I write up the obligatory note on his reservation summarizing everything I've just told you, and settle in to continue redditing. About 20 minutes later, as I'm returning to the front desk, from having delivered some ultra-deluxe premium 40-grit bath towels to a guest room, I discover Mr. Boostafarian in the middle of my parking lot, stumbling over chalks and narrowly missing slamming into people's cars. From the looks of it, he's been attempting to find his room by following some invisible, geriatric arthritic dragonfly, who is likewise unsure of which way is up. It is at this moment that I decide he is not in fact drunk. He's strung out on something else entirely, something strong. I ask the newly dubbed Mr. McPill's Drugs if he needs help. You gotta make them think they asked you for something. You can't just go patronizing people. And he says his keys don't work, so he's trying to find his room, glossing over the baffling idea that he is scouring the parking lot for his room, and the highly abnormal fact that he'd been wandering roomless for 20 minutes. I usher him back to the lobby and tell him to give me his old keys so I can write new ones. We arrive in the lobby and he's complaining about how he can't get into his room number 999. This is odd because I had just written him up for keys for room 888, which was in fact his room. He slaps onto the counter a key packet containing 2 shiny, brand new, fresh out of the box, modest-in keys. Not our keys. At this point, the guy owns our room. He signed the papers. His card has authorized, so I may as well give him new keys to our room just in case his keys don't actually work on the correct door. I write him keys, and again offer to take him to his room, and again he refuses. The moment he's hauled his dragon-chasing posterior out the door, I ring up the Modest Inn. Since the hotels in our cluster are pretty tight with each other, I have no problem getting the agent over there to confirm that they do in fact have a sky with 999 diamonds for this particular Lucy. Now I feel bad, because I just sold this severely incapacitated, as I now know, guest a room that he should absolutely not have bought. Also, I don't want him on my property because if a guest is gonna kick the bucket, it damn well better be during one of my audits. Not during an evening shift. Audits are boring. I write myself a killer key, and sprint up to 888 to discover that he hasn't even entered the room, which is exactly what I wanted to find. I killed the door and set about trying to find Shrooms McDope, which took about 8 seconds because, you guessed it, he's still testing the physics engine in our parking lot. This is when I stop being suggestive and straight up tell him what to do, in the way a school nurse tells a nosebleedy kid to keep his head back and stop eating pencil lead. "Mr. Cloudrider, I found your room. I just called the Modest Inn and they said that they have a room for you over there. Come back to the lobby and take a seat and I'll call you a cab." Normally I wouldn't call a cab for the 200-yard walk to the other hotel, even for drunk guests, because that's a bit of work and a hefty price tag for such a short distance. But this dude would definitely end up face down in the stream between here and there, or repainting someone's hood and windshield, with profound thoughts, audacious ideas, and all the other contents of a human skull. So I called him a cab. I explained to him that he would need to pay for the cab like $10, but I'd be releasing his credit card authorization and would not be charging him for the room. Just to keep my bases covered, I add that he would still be paying the Modest Inn for the room over there. This whole time I'm pretty sure I may as well have been explaining all of this to the breakfast room toaster. But he clearly picked up a thing or two, because when the cab showed up 10 minutes later, he produced his credit card as he got in. I called the Modest Inn back and warned them to expect their catastrophically high guest, who will probably need help finding his room. 5. Being part of the night audit guarantees you two things. Your sleeping schedule is always going to be all over the place. You're going to be dealing with some very interesting situations. This happened some 2 weeks ago when I had just got back from my break and relieved my colleague. It was a normal night. The hotel was foolish, but it was quiet. No big events or check-ins during the night, or any no-shows. Hell, even the audit was remarkably fast, and we didn't find any blunders from the previous shifts. If you're a night auditor, you know that when these conditions happen, you're gonna be in for a strange ride during the night. There's several major world-class companies in my city, and a few of them like sending their business partners, customers, and all others to our hotel. On their dime, of course. And a lot of them happen to be foreigners. Normally this isn't a problem for us, but they like to bring around nightbirds to the hotel. Standard procedure says you welcome the guest and their nightbird, ask for the ID from the nightbird, ID card, driver's license, passport, as long as it is valid, confirm that they're over 18, take a copy of it, have them sign in, and let them in. Of course, the hotel does get a small share of the action. Anyways, this particular night a taxi stopped in front of the hotel, and out came a man and this fairly young woman. The man came inside and asked for a lighter so he could have a smoke, and mentioned he was going to be bringing a girl up to his room. I replied in the best Spanish I could muster that it was okay, as long as she had a proper ID on her. A few minutes later the girl comes in and says she doesn't have an ID, and as is the procedure, we deny her entry. Okay, nothing wrong so far. But then another 2 taxis stop and out comes his friends and that girl's friends. Turns out the girls had negotiated a package deal with these particular guests. I see they bide their time before coming in, and then immediately the pack leader walks up to the front desk and demands to know why I'm not letting her friend in. Very politely I explain, she understands, scolds her friend for not bringing her ID when she knew she was supposed to. Meanwhile the other girl is just rolling her eyes around as if to say, this again. And the guests are, well, they're all over the front lobby just waiting for me to let the girls go upstairs. After a bit of explaining that I can't take 2 copies of her ID and let the other girl go into the room, the pack leader attempts to bribe me with $200. On top of that, one of the guests tried to offer me another $100 more. I politely declined and pointed out that I couldn't take the money and the girl couldn't go up. And they begin with the "oh, but nobody will know" routine. The entire hotel has cameras everywhere, so everyone will know. This goes on for a bit, and the guests ask where the toilet is, and I point it out. But while doing so, the girl goes up with one of the guests. When I sense their absence, I start watching the cameras, and lo and behold, they went up through the service elevator and are getting inside the room. Immediately I bolt and wake up my sleeping coworker, and ask him to take over the front desk while I go sort this mess out. I headed up to the room, knocked on the door, and the girl said something, but when she realized it was me, she decided it was best to pretend she wasn't there. The guest meanwhile started speaking in Spanish and English, and pretending that he couldn't understand me. This goes on for 2 or 3 minutes, and, sick of it, I announce that if he doesn't open the door and the girl leaves, I will call the police. After a loudish sigh, he complies, practically shoving the girl out of the room, and stumbles back into bed. I escort her down to the front desk where my friend is enjoying the Harpy song, pack leader ranting, and trying to do a walk-in on a family that just rolled into town. He turned it all over to me and went back to his sleep. At this point I've had enough, and I begin getting calls complaining about the noise and the shouting. The family is just standing there trying to pretend this isn't happening, and the boss bitch is trying to get me to tell her which room the guests are in so she can go negotiate with them. I soon after run out of patience and politely ask her to leave, or I will be calling the police to make her leave. After some more back and forth between her and her friends, they finally get a cab and leave. The family laughs their asses off and tell me it's all good. I did find out later through my colleague that while I went after the guest and his nightbird, that the other guest got tired of those chicks, paid them $50 each for them to just go away and leave them alone, and that's on top of the $800 they had paid up front for their services. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to Confessions of a Hotel Worker, number 13. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. I genuinely, initially, thought a night bird was a bunch of guys bringing birds in cages to a hotel. It wasn't until they actually mentioned there were people. I was like, oh, okay, that suddenly makes more sense. I learned a new thing today. Okay, and with that I'm going to head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.